supposed to be talking about like the do's and don'ts for your first job in volunteering, as well as advice for starting in the healthcare space. So as Katrina mentioned, I did used to be in the healthcare space, so I'll share a little bit more about that. But just to give you a little bit more about me, so you know, that's my face. So I'm a learning and development professional. So all those trainings that people have to do when they're at work, I'm in charge of all of those. And so people love me. Not really, because they don't think they're very fun, but that is my job, and my role is to make it so that training is fun, it's lively, it's enjoyable. I consider myself to be something called an office confidence advocate. So my platform is really focused on helping people to show up unapologetically themselves at work, which is really, really important to having a really good quality of life at work. And the way that I do that is through something called Clifton Strengths. So I am a certified coach and help adults and sometimes young people to be able to figure out their strengths and put language to them so they understand how to interview well and to really tell their story in a good way. And I'm also based in Portland, Oregon myself. I was born and raised in Portland, and most of the time that's where I'm at, but I also have a residence in Seattle as well, so I'm kind of back and forth between the two. So I was also asked just to share a little bit about like my career journey. So I just want to share a couple of things with you all. So I'm old, right? So I graduated from high school in 2004, it was like 1,000 years ago. And it was really important for me to go to a historically Black college. And so I went to and graduated from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia in 2008. And my first job, I would say, was in 2012. So after I graduated, I did work some jobs, but it wasn't until about 4 years after I graduated that I found myself working at a career college that specialized in medical related careers. So medical assisting, medical insurance billing and coding, pharmacy technicians, and I think there's one more, but my job was in career services. And so I was focused on helping people to start their careers in the medical field. And so I spent all of my time helping students to build their resumes, helping them to find their internships and their externships, and ensuring that they were ready to go to work. And it was a very, very fulfilling role for me. And I was there for several years. In 2015, I decided to get my MBA, which is my Master of Business Administration, because I knew that I could make more money that way in the administrative space. And so I went to Concordia University, and in 2016, I started at Kaiser Permanente. So within Kaiser Permanente, what I did not know, because no one ever told me, is that there are people that do the jobs other than just save people's lives. And so I actually worked in human resources, and my best thing that I got to do at Kaiser Permanente was that I created the Kaiser Permanente Youth Exploration Academy in Healthcare, which is a program that is still in existence today in Kaiser Permanente that is for young people. And our goal was to help those who are low income, marginalized students of color. Yes, thank you, Susan. To be able to help low income, marginalized students of color to be able to explore their interests in the healthcare careers. And so what I was really aiming to do with that program is to give people just like yourselves the opportunity to actually spend about a month with Kaiser Permanente. So you come every day during the summer to be able to just try out different things. So some of the highlights of the KPIA program are working with we. So you saw the video from Kaiser Permanente. So you get to go into an operating room that has no real people in it, but get to intubate a patient, not a real patient, but get to intubate a patient, get to play with the vein finder, just a lot of really, really fun things. And so that was actually my job. So I created that program a few years ago. And I was still in school while I did that. So I finished that MBA in 2017. And then I had the opportunity to transition to Kaiser Permanente in Washington. And Washington State's Kaiser Permanente up north in Seattle is far different than the one in the Portland metro area. And so I spent a couple of years there building some additional learning programs there. And then last year in 2020, I built my business because I really wanted to have have one. And then in 2021, so early this year, I transitioned to Washington County back in Oregon to work in learning and development. So I'm no longer with Kaiser Permanente, but I did a keynote for them on Friday. So we're still real tight. So if you have questions, I'm happy to find an answer for you. So that's enough about me now. That's kind of what it is that I'm up to now. But brace yourself for some bad photos, okay? So this is Breanna in high school, okay? So much like you, thought you were all that in a bag of chips, looked great, but then you look back at those photos and say, what in the world was I thinking? But I was a part of Rose Festival Court, so I was the ambassador or the princess for Grant High School. And then why my mom has a picture of me in a cap and gown on her phone right now, I don't know, but I got that from her today. And then a couple of me and my friends back in the day when we used to write everything on our shirts. But it's so good to see that you all, some of you know what you want to do, but some of you don't. And I think that's a really important thing to know, that it is quite fine for you to be this age and still not have a clue. I am not that age, and I still don't really have a clue every day what it is that I want to do, but I know that I want to help people, right? I know that I want to make a difference. And so I have a career in which I have chosen to do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be doing the same thing forever. But there are some concepts that are pretty, I think, universal. I think some of the adults in the room would agree that if we can just kind of stick to these few things, that it'll help us to be successful no matter what it is that we decide to do. When I think about like first job or volunteering do's and don'ts, there's a few things that I thought of that I wanted you all to keep in mind. So this would be that moment, if you're a person who takes notes, like get these notes. If you're a person who doesn't take notes, get these notes, because you're going to need them in the future at some point, even if you have it all figured out. So here's a couple of things. One, I want you to remember to practice how you play. So if you're in sports, you've probably heard this phrase before, but it is so important for you to take your work seriously. So whether you're volunteering or it is your first job, it is so incredibly important to realize the importance of being your very best every single day. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's because you're starting to condition your mind to say, if I have to go to work every afternoon at 4 p.m., I'm going to be ready by 3:45. Like, we just start conditioning ourselves to do like the right thing. But if we start to be lazy about it, then we'll continue to operate that way. So we want to always practice how you're going to play. When you get to like accounting classes and things, you'll probably start learning about like LIFO and FIFO. So it's like last in, first out, or first in, last out. What I want you to think about is FILO. So first in, last out. That means that when you've got a schedule, you are the first person there and you are the last one to leave. Now, theoretically, that might not always work out for you, but the idea is to be able to do something called run through the tape. I guess I'm really on sports today, but the idea of, if you've ever been on in a track meet, I'm curious, does anybody run track at all? You can let me know in the chat. But what they tell you is to run through the tape. And the idea of that is to say, all right, so Hayden, so don't slow down until you're through the line, right? So the idea of just like, oh, I'll just go to work, I'll do a little bit of stuff, and then I'm just going to take off like 5 minutes early. Like, don't do that. Like, be ready to work at the time that you're supposed to be there. And when it's time to go, complete the task before taking off, unless it's like, I've got 90 hours left of this project, I have to leave right now. But think about that. The third thing is to make yourself useful. Somebody told me one time, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. So when you are at work and you're complete or you're done with your tasks, when you're done volunteering with your tasks, go find your supervisor and find out, what else can I do to be successful or to be helpful to you? How can I make you successful today? Employers love hearing that. How can I make you successful today? What can I do for you? So if you ever find yourself in a position where you're just like, oh, I've got some free time, but I'm still on the clock, then I would encourage you to go find your leader and then to see what else you can do. Something else, be a student of the industry. So continue to keep learning. Even just listening to the women from Avamere, the one who, I think Margaret, who's been working for so incredibly long. She thought she was going to retire, but she's still got some stuff to do. So take the time to continue to learn. I do this most by listening to podcasts that are about my industry, reading articles that are about my industry. And so I would encourage you all to find something that you like about pediatrics or about trauma, and not just like Grey's Anatomy, not just like something on TLC, but like go find like real like scholarly articles and podcasts to listen to about the work you want to do. Now I know that I think it was Tina just said that you don't need a resume for Avamere. That's fine. You all might not work at Avamere, right? So it's important to start building your resume. All of the experience that you have matters. So whether it's just babysitting, or whether it's raking leaves for your family friends, it's important to start finding the language to put that information into a document, or at least keep that in your mind. So even if you don't need a resume for Avamere, for example, you're going to have an interview. So you're going to need to be able to recall the things that you've been able to do so that you can tell them why it is that they should hire you. Okay. And the last thing that you should do is to know your limits. So somebody asked the question in the chat earlier about like, do you have flexible schedules? That's a great question to ask when you're talking to an employer or talking with your volunteer place. If they tell you the schedule is, 5 to 9, Monday through Friday, but you know that you have, basketball practice until 4:52, then it might not be possible for you to make it on time every day. So it's important for you to be honest about your schedule and your capacity. So what exactly you can do for that particular employer. Here's some things to not do, okay? Let's try to avoid these things. Keeping mistakes to yourself. Mistakes are a part of learning. And it's very important, especially in the healthcare field, that if we've mixed up a medication, if we have written something incorrectly in a chart, that we share that information out so that we can get the support we need to do better. The your way or the highway, my way or the highway kind of attitude, not helpful, right? Like I know that there are things that we are experts on. I know how to say my name. I know what I like to eat. I know where it is that I want to go. That's great. But it's important to be flexible in your hearing. It's important to be able to think about how other people can support you. And so it's not just how you want to do things. Another thing is to never question, so don't not question things. Even though you're new in a space, it's important to be able to share your perspective. So when people are saying, do things this way, it's okay to ask a question. Can you help me understand more about why it is that I should do this or should not do this? Don't come without a notebook. So when you're in working spaces, you using your phone all the time to be able to, I'm just taking notes. That looks like texting, right? Like some places you can't have your phones on the floor. So it's important to have some type of notebook or something for you to be able to take notes. I also want you to avoid staying scared. Comfort zones are for quitters. Okay, if you get nothing else from me, know that. We want to challenge ourselves to learn more, to step outside of our spaces. And so don't stay scared. If something's new and is concerning for you, or it's something you're not sure of, just ask more questions, but lean into the discomfort. And the last thing I want you to try to avoid is expecting things to be easy. Working in nursing is head work, it's heart work, and it's hard work. And so it's important to think about the fact that you are saving people's lives. You are doing important things. So no, it's not going to be easy, but it's certainly going to be worth it. Let me tell you one more thing. So this is probably the part that you wanted, but it's about starting in healthcare. So let me give you like four quick things and I'll leave you alone. Okay, here are my things. So I want you to develop your elevator pitch. So think about like your name, your school, your grade, your profession of interest, and possibly like the college or like the post-secondary education space that you're going to go to. So it's like, hi, my name is Breanna. I'm in 12th grade at Grant High School. I want to be a NICU nurse and I want to go to, Oregon State University to pursue this particular degree I need, like whatever. Whatever it is that you want to say in your elevator pitch, it becomes really important as you start being a part of programs like these. And what you can do is practice your pitch during the holidays. So the holidays are coming up. Use your family when you're at the dinner table or whatever, just to say, hey, just want to share who I am. And you'd be surprised that somebody in your family who might not have known what you wanted to do might actually be available to be able to support you in a way that you had no idea. Second thing, do informational interviews if you have the opportunity, but I want you to think about doing them with empathy and with a purpose. So when I say empathy, right now and always, healthcare professionals are really, really busy and they are stretched to the max. And so it's not just about like, Sophie, like, can you talk to me? Please, please, please. It's like, oh, I understand you're really busy. Thank you so much for your time. I want to send you the questions beforehand. So if you have to cancel, you might still be able to answer a question for me, right? The point that I want you to keep in mind is that people's time is too precious for us to say, well, tell me everything about you. Like, think of like 3 or 4 questions that you want to be able to ask that person. Next thing, and I'm almost done, is that I want you to think about building good relationships with more than one person. Through your career, you're going to need letters of recommendation. You're going to need opportunities, and only having Katrina as like your person. If Katrina gets really busy, then you might miss the deadline for your application because she couldn't write your letter of recommendation. So you need Carrie, you need Sophie, you need, Katie, you need all these other people. So build good relationships with more than one person. And lastly, I want you to consider this: build or write your plan in permanent marker, but the steps in pencil. And then what I mean by that is to say that some of you said that you know exactly what you want to do. What happens when you get to that room and there's a mom that's like really, really, really protective of her child and does not want you to help them? Are you bold enough to be able to tell that mom that you're in charge? Or are you like, I don't like to deal with confrontation, so maybe I need to do something else? It's important to consider that right now you have an idea about why it is you want to do something. Oh, I love babies. They're so cute. Da, da, da. Sick babies aren't cute. Dying babies aren't cute. Like that's a really heavy emotional thing to deal with. And so you still might have it in you to be a nurse, but maybe it's in a different space, right? And so I want you to think about writing your plan in permanent marker. I know who I want to be, but the way I'm going to get there might be a little bit different than I intended. I just want you to know that if you ever need me, you can reach me in different areas. So you can follow me on Instagram at @therefining_company. If you have a LinkedIn, you can find me there. And I also have a website as well. So with that, thank you so much for allowing me to come and chat with you all. And I hope you have a good evening.